Subcommittee to the solid waste. I need to read our monthly declaration of virtual meetings, so bear with me. This meeting of the Subcommittee of Solid Waste is being conducted electronically pursuant to Governor Bill Lee's Executive Order number 16. I would ask for a motion that conducting the meeting electronically is necessary to protect public health, safety, and welfare in light of the coronavirus. And we have a second. Rachel, will you do roll call, please?
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherino?
Yes.
Commissioner Blair?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Chairman Cush?
Yes. All right, we have no minutes to put into the archives, and we have a few items on the agenda to chat about. And if you would humor me, I want to pontificate a minute, which I am so good at doing, going off into the weeds. You know, as we think and focus in on our solid waste issue and the times we're in right now, I can't help but think about how COVID and the pandemic has affected us. And so let me talk about something as we look forward to our solution, apostrophe S, solutions to our solid waste issue. You know, I think about all the hospital workers. I think of all the masks, the gloves, the gowns that are being disposed of that potentially carry the virus. Perhaps that virus doesn't live very long on these masks and on these PPE items, but they're coming to a landfill, right? They're being disposed of. People are coming home, throwing their masks in their own kitchen trash, things like that. So those things are coming to our landfill. Does that create a problem for us? Again, we're receiving trash from multiple counties. You know, I just wonder, these are kind of things that you think about when you're watching cartoons. So, which, you know, I think, all right, well, maybe some kind of incineration is really the right way to handle trash, to burn this, heat these things up to where it would kill any virus, COVID or anything else that might come down the pike in our generation or our children's generation. And then also, I think of how the world has changed in the way we serve the public, we being when we go to the restaurants now, all the menus are paper. All the utensils are plastic. My mother is in a retirement home down the street from me. Everything, all her meals are served in plastic, and she goes through 6 styrofoam cups a day. And multiply that times everyone in her campus, times every retirement campus in Rutherford County, times everyone in the state, times 50 states. Think of the trash buildup that we are dealing with because of the pandemic. So look at the burden that is placing on our solid waste. And lastly, and Mac, you know, explained this to us 2 months ago, as many of us are home working from the house, in our spare time we're cleaning out attics and garages and have all this extra waste that we'd like to get rid of, and his convenience centers are overfilled. So, I mean, the animal continues to grow, and we're just moving the puddle somewhere else. It's a big fix. It's a big fix, but these are the kind of things that this committee has to think about. I mean, one deadly virus. I mean, how do you treat all the things that are contaminated from that. Best thing to do is to burn them, I guess. So is that part of the solution? I don't know. Just wanted to talk out loud. That's my thought for the day. So anyway. All right. In no particular order, I want to go through some items on the agenda. And let's start with some of the easy ones. Mac, if you don't mind, speaking of convenience centers, would you give us an update on where we are on the limitations of bulk items being received? Is there still a limit on pieces? Give us an update on where we are.
If a resident were to call our office, ask what they can dispose of, we're accepting what's normally in your kitchen trash can and your recyclables, which is cardboard, mixed paper, glass, tin, aluminum, and plastic, and up to 3 bulk items. And a bulk item is what is normally not in your kitchen trash can. So if sitting at my desk, it could be anything from the computer on the desk to the television on the wall to the stapler, or it could be the desk itself. It is a bulk item. But no building materials. And the reason we did that, if you remember roughly 8 weeks ago, a little longer than that now, the centers were receiving 3 times the amount of stuff that we're accustomed to. People staying at home, they were, like the Commissioner said, they're cooking more, so they're generating more kitchen trash. They're there more often, so they're actually generating more trash and more recyclables. And then they were doing their cleaning projects. That is still going on somewhat. The other thing that we found out when we stopped taking the building materials is our truck drivers were seeing the same people that were swearing up and down at our centers that they were doing little projects at home, paying at the landfill with a business account. So we stopped some of that. One of my truck drivers actually likes to talk to the other people, and he was fuzzy. The resident was kind of complaining about building materials, and the truck driver said, "So you want your taxes to go up to pay for these small mom and pop building operations free disposal?" Why, no. Well, right now we've got those stopped. So to give you a better idea, I did the numbers before I left. We hauled 35 loads today. That's 4.7 loads per driver per day is the average. When Middle Point was running in its heyday, you could get the truck in and out normal, it was 7.8 loads per driver. So we're down not quite half the number of loads per driver is what we had. So that is hurting us. The residents have also found out that some of those building materials, if they put it in a black trash bag and throw it in the compactor and move on, okay, that makes the packer fill up a little quicker, has a little less compaction rate, but it's still better than putting it in an open top. We dumped our slower centers went this morning, Rock Springs down on the south side of the county, and Christiana Fosterville. Christiana went first this morning. It was on an 8 o'clock driver. By the time he got left the yard at 8 o'clock, went to Christiana Fosterville, picked it up, got to landfill, got out of the landfill, it was 11. And the load weighed 13 tons. And that's a good load for a trash compactor, but that's a slower center, so it gets to pack more often. Same thing with cardboard loads. The slower centers will pack more often, so the loads of cardboard will weigh more. The one from Eagleville today weighed 5.3. The one from Sand Hill today weighed 4.7. Fills up quicker and they don't pack it as quick, so the compaction ratio is a little bit off. So how are we going to fix it? That's kind of where you want to go, I assume. We don't want to get it back into taking building material, especially big, large truckloads of it, because we get abused by the small mom and pop people, and how we're going to fix it, I don't know the answer to that. Right now we're accepting 3 bulk items. Maybe we move that number to 5. And a building material can be a bulk item. So if you have a toilet, you have the tank and the bowl, one piece, that's 1 item. If you take them apart, then that's 2 items.
Yeah. Okay.
Things that a lot of the residents are unhappy about, and I understand it. They have the child's play set in the backyard, made out of wood, got a little tarp over it and a swing set and all that. Well, the best way to get it to the convenience center is to take it apart. Once you take it apart, it's building material. There's only 3 pieces of that you can get rid of. So, we can do some adjustment, but what we also have to think about is how we can keep or try to keep the residents from taking advantage of us.
Yeah. All right. All right. So for now, 3 bulk items. When your constituents call you, 3 bulk items is the limit. All right. Thank you, Mac. As we start to talk about our RFI, I want to put another thought into your head. At some point in time, we need to decide what our budget is going to be. So, because here's why. What happens when we see this really cool technology, but we can't afford it? So we need to begin to be thinking about what is our budget going to be. Does that make sense to you? And how we start that conversation? What is it, Mr. Blair?
Thinking about knowing the solution.
Yeah.
How do we know what we can?
Yeah. Well, I guess I don't know if you back into it by you take the population in the county and how much do you think our constituents are? How much are you and I willing to pay a month? Maybe is where you start. I don't know. Find a comfort zone, but sure enough, what's going to happen is we're going to see some really cool technology, and we're going to really drool all over it. And then when we find out the price tag, we're going to choke. Is my fear. So I think we need to have some kind of a number in hand on where our limitation might be. So we could have that number kind of in the back of our head.
After being free for all these years,
$5 is going to be.
I mean, I'm thinking, anything more than free is going to be problematic.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to fall in love with something we can't afford, and that's now we got to start thinking broadly about what we're about to embark on. And Matt, go ahead.
Several of us made a trip a while back to Huntsville to see the waste energy plant there.
Yeah.
And if you remember, we asked him about what it would cost to have that type plant large enough to do what we need here. And the number was $1 billion with a B. We don't have enough trash for that. So I think one of the first questions we need to answer is, do we want partners, and who do we want them to be to help provide trash?
Yeah. Yeah. So just a thought. All right. We have, Steve has received, and Becky may have, in a joint venture, have received, I believe, over a dozen inquiries from different technologies already, with 5 weeks left on the calendar before RFIs are due. So I believe that's a good sign. I think that's a healthy number this early on. So, and I don't think any of the big players have even. The big folks are waiting till the last minute, of course. So I'm encouraged by that number, and I believe the plan. This is subject to change. I believe the plan is we are going to wait till we receive everything on. I believe August 3rd is the date we picked. I may be mistaken, but early August is the deadline to receive all the packets. As soon as humanly possible after that date, we will open those packets live, and we will assign approximately a 20-minute live or virtual time where those technologies can present to us. I think it's only fair that we interview all, even though some may be way out there in terms of claims or technologies. I think from a legal standpoint, which we'll verify with our attorney, but I think it's only fair that we give everybody a shot so everybody can say that they were treated equally, which is going to be a burden of time for us, but I think that's the right thing to do. So we'll have an interview with all who send in a packet. We can then ask questions. Between now and then, we will come up with some good questions that we can consistently ask to every applicant, so we can be fair and logical in our sequence of questions, and then we can start to shortlist styles and technologies that we like to begin our RFP selection. Does that make sense, Mac, to you and Becky? Mayor, does that all make sense? Okay.
Do you feel there's a need to listen to the people we've already listened to before that's give us in-depth presentations?
Vice Chairman Piercy, I do, because for two reasons. I think what you would call the big boys, I think in our initial discussions, I don't know that they would unveil all their cards in our early discussions. I don't think they would unveil all their cards in an RFI. I think in an RFP is when they lay all the cards out on the table. So I think, I think they tease you a little bit, they tease you a little more with an RFI, and then you get them to the RFP, and then everything's out. So I think you have to hear everybody, because I think they're going to add a layer every time you chat.
How many companies
Yeah, I think right now it's about a dozen, 13. But Shanto, it could be 50 by the time the 1st of August rolls around. We don't know yet, and I believe we should have this. We should have our RFI advertised in the paper, I believe. Okay, and I don't know if it's on our website. It is on the website, okay. We want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to see it. We don't want to get into a position that one company says, well, I would have loved to have participated, but I never saw it. It's in the paper tomorrow, okay. All right, so it's critical that we make every avenue available for people not to say, well, I had no idea that it was out there. So it's going to be in the paper and on our website. All right, so any questions on that particular item or items? All right, Becky, I appreciate you making the drive. We will be leaning on you heavy, not like we haven't already, but kind of, if you'd like, if we can indulge, we have to develop a series of questions that for the RFI that are, like I mentioned a second ago, that we ask to the same technologies over and over for a sense of consistency and fairness. It would be unfair and unethical to ask one group a certain set of questions and then turn around and ask a different group a different set. So we have to treat all fairly. So between now and July or August, August 3rd, thank you, Rachel. So between now and then, we would like to, I believe, come up with some kind of series of questions, some basic questions, because I know until we actually see the technologies, those will spur questions amongst themselves. But, basic questions about, how long you've been in business, I guess, leadership, how long this particular technology has been in play, what other areas and how long has this technology been going on, success rate, things like that would be basic questions. But help us, I guess, help us look good, number one, and two, help us help us ask the right questions so we can get the most out of these suppliers and vendors. So do you have any comments, any suggestions on what we do?
I would just say, from the beginning, each of you all have a certain area that you're more interested in, or because of your expertise and because of what you normally do in your daily work, you have a little more experience in certain areas. Some of you all have really focused on what relationships are with others. Some of y'all have focused on what are the financial pieces. Some of y'all have focused on who are the people. So there's nothing that says that you can't have your own list of questions that you would ask each of the applicants or each of the people in the interview. I would say the questions that you've posed here at the beginning are good ones, but I think you have to remember this is somewhat of an interview for them, so there really aren't any questions that you shouldn't ask if you're interested. I think the only way you're going to know the best method or the best process that you're interested in or that you want to actually recommend for an RFP would be to ask those questions, which is one of the benefits of you all actually having the interviews. You're sitting in the room together, all of you all are hearing the same thing, and if one commissioner asks a question, then all of the commissioners and everyone here hear the same answer. So if your question is the same, all of a sudden you don't have to ask your question, but maybe you have a follow-up question. I just think you have to treat it as if it's an open forum because, we talked about proprietary information and that type of thing. Well, guess what? They're going to be here and it's going to be up to them what they tell the world because it's actually on video and they're in front of people and it's public record and all those things. Those are things that are truly on them as far as what they're going to tell the public and what they want people to know. So I would say think about those questions for yourself and what you're going to need, what type of information you're going to need to be able to decide this is the type of technology or, composting is one of the things we really want to do. We really want to include that. Or maybe we want to do this a little differently, or is there a specific process you want to use for composting? The Bedminster system in Sevierville is one of those. So I think there are going to be some things that you're going to want to ask specifically of the people that come and present to you.
Do we need to establish a grading or ranking system at this point, or is that best saved for the RFP portion?
I would say that's best saved for the RFP portion. What I picture or envision, and after talking with the county attorney, is what you're going to do is you're going to gather information here, and you're going to be able to say, okay, yes, composting is something that we want to have as part of our integrated system, and we're going to include a piece of that in the RFP, so that any company that wants to respond to the RFP would then come forward with composting, and then that's when they'll bring, dollars and cents and time frame and all the specifics that we've talked about in the past.
All right. Do you think a 20-minute slot is sufficient at this first round to and again, and maybe this would be a question for legal, some of the smaller folks that are just have a single technology, I can see where 20 minutes may be plenty. If you have a multi-faceted team that might need 45 minutes or an hour, can we grant bigger players more minutes, or does I wonder if that gets into a legal issue?
And I think you have to ask the question. I think you have to ask your attorney the question, only because what constitutes larger player? Do you want to give them however much time they want or need? You're going to have some folks that may speak for 3 hours. If you have a defined period of time, they can practice their presentation. Hopefully they know their business well enough to actually sell it in the period of time that you've defined, whatever that period of time is. I mean, 20 minutes is not a magic number.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, I understand. Okay. Because ideally, we'll sit down with IT, but ideally, shortly after August 3rd, we can look at the calendar and carve out several hours, not necessarily all in one day, but a couple hour slots where we could perhaps get 3 an hour, 2 an hour, and maybe do a 2-hour stint from 5:30 to 7:30 evening and knock out 5. It all depends on how many comes in. I'm just thinking out loud here.
Well, and you may want to go ahead and put some of those on the calendar,
Yeah.
so that when to actually block that out, so everyone.
Right. And if there's daytime slots, we'll talk to the committee about a daytime slot. But I'm going back to my public PBA days, Public Building Authority days, when we would interview multiple big GCs or architects for big projects, I mean, we would hammer them for hours, it would seem like. And we'd do like one a day. And then we'd come back the next day and interview another one. But we did that to make sure we picked the right team to do the project. So, okay, I think you've answered kind of what we needed to get started, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would suggest, as Becky was talking about, and of course, in consultation with Nick, but give everybody 20 minutes to begin with and go through that. Then if you feel like that some have more to share, then that kind of helps you in the culling of those that you want to bring back for a second round, and allow more time.
Yeah.
And if they're interested, they'll come back. So it's kind of a self-elimination as we go through.
All right.
We'll be able to determine that amount.
All right. Do you guys have your calendars in front of you? I'll give you a minute to pull up your phones or your day timers. And Becky, do you have your court calendar? Let's look at August and see what evening dates might be available. Yes, go ahead, Mayor.
Mr. Chairman, at this point, once the RFIs come back and we start that RFP process, I think I need direction from this committee. When is it appropriate for me to reach out to the leadership of the other municipalities of Murfreesboro, Smyrna, Laverne, and Eagleville? We've been talking about that for over a year, and if we're going to be all-inclusive, we don't need, that's what happened last time, is that the city of Murfreesboro didn't feel that they had a seat at the table. If we're looking at a comprehensive plan for whoever has decided, are we going to try to take that on by ourselves, or are we going to include the other municipality leadership?
Yeah. Now, are you talking about in reviewing of these RFI?
Not the
technologies?
RFI, but once we have identified those who are interested in bringing an RFP, I think is at what point do we extend the invitation to Mayor McFarland, to
Sure.
Mary Esther?
Yeah.
Can I answer that?
Yeah.
I think that we should include them after we look at the RFIs and weed out the ones. I don't think that we need to get them involved until we look at the RFI and see the ones that we want to do an RFP to. And then we need to bring them in on that.
Sure. Instead of wasting their time, we should, I think we're smart enough that we should be able to determine top 3 or 4.
Absolutely, Mayor. I mean, I have nothing but confidence in this committee that we can do that. So I don't think that they need to be involved in RFI. I think that's going to increase that and bog that down. But I do think that once we get ready for the RFPs, then we bring in the coalition. That's just my opinion.
Anybody have anybody not agree with that? Okay. Does that make sense to you? You okay with that, Mayor?
Yeah, that makes sense to me. We need to know as we move forward, are you in or are you out? Smyrna or Laverne may say, we're okay with what we got. We don't want to participate. We like our private haulers coming in. We don't want to participate. Well, when we start charging $10 fee for all citizens, or whatever that magical hypothetical number might be, when we determine what it's going to cost the citizens, because it's no longer going to be free, then they may want to see at the table. They'll come back and say, we want to be involved.
The interviews that we're going to do, the 20-minute interviews, aren't they going to be live and recorded?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So if they're interested, they could
They can
watch
watch.
then or watch at a later date
Sure.
to keep from being felt, like they were left out.
That's right.
So they still have access to it.
Right.
Mr.
All right.
Chairman,
Yes, Chairman P.
I just wanted to basically say the same thing Commissioner Piercy just did. I think it might be a good idea for us to send a letter to these guys and let them know, hey, we're looking at this. If you want to attend, you're welcome to attend. We'll be weeding them out, not necessarily giving them a voice in it, but I think on the front end, let them know they're welcome.
Well, I could state in the letter that we would like to extend the invitation for anyone from your public entity that would like to come and attend and watch the RFI process, but then be prepared as we move forward with the RFP to have a representative.
Yeah.
Does
Yeah.
that sound okay?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I think we want to insist that they have somebody here for an RFP, and it would,
That I'll craft the letter to each one of the mayors, and probably ask you to sign on to that letter with me.
all right. Seeing that all packets are due August 3rd, the Wednesday, the 5th is available. Tuesday, the 11th is available. What does court mean?
Full commission.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But see, those will have to be moved because that's county general.
Okay,
Those will have the budget or
okay,
anything that Pete is in.
okay. And I'm assuming you guys don't want to do like Friday mornings or anything like that. You all have real jobs and don't want to do that. So I see Wednesday, the 5th.
Before you dispense with daytime, can we ask the group? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
is anybody available during some days? Is there is it before lunch, during lunch, after lunch, anything? After school starts, no work around bus schedules and stuff? Because I think if we want this it could be 4 to 8 sessions, depending 25 to 50 candidates. I don't know, but
Yeah.
so to not bog us down, I think was Craig's term. I'd want to squeeze in maybe a day and an evening. Still going to take a month. So, I mean, I'm just saying I could squeeze in some days if the other gentleman can as well, and Beck.
Are you the only one out? Craig, what about you? If you did a midday long lunch or something, or early?
Yeah, I can do that, except for,
I'm not saying every meeting that way, but if we did one or two, depending on how many packets we get back?
yes, I can do it, but I can't do anything until
After 12, okay. Okay. So the 4 of us are available during the day. Piercy's out, and you're available after 1. Chairman P., are you available during the day?
I am most days.
Most days, okay. All right.
Yeah.
I just don't want to leave out anybody. So I'm all for going to evenings to make it convenient for every one of us. It's so critical. So again, I'm open to the consensus of the group. If one of us can't make it, we want to go to evenings, I'm okay with that.
Is anybody opposed to a Friday midday? Okay. For now, let's pencil in Wednesday, 5:30. Yes, sir, the 5th. And then let's pencil in, let's say 1 o'clock Friday the 7th, let's say 1 to 3. And then let's pencil in, here, Rachel, you're writing it down. Let's do then Tuesday the 11th at 5:30. Let's say 1 o'clock in the afternoon, from 1 to 3. And we'll just stop right there and see how many packets we get back at our next.
Tuesday, what time?
5:30. So 5:30 to 7 maybe, and then 1 Friday midday. And as Steve starts to get more packets in, we'll adjust our calendar accordingly. I'm sorry, say again? Third day was the 11th, is that right? The 11th. And will you mail those out to us? Email. And then we'll make sure IT knows that that's our plan, because I'm assuming most of these will be virtual meetings.
Regular scheduled Public Works would be the 5th or the 4th, correct?
Yes, the first Tuesday. Yeah.
Okay, so but we're going to open, or we're just going to receive them on the 3rd, but do nothing with them until the 5th.
We're going to receive on the 3rd. Well, I guess we could open on a regular meeting, right? Use our meeting time to open? Although that's everybody's reports, though, isn't it? Yeah, that's probably not good. We may have to do that first the day of the 5th to open. Yeah, that may be when we actually physically open. And would that be, do you envision that like, not property management, but purchasing? You just rip open and you say, well, we got a so-and-so and put it in the deal and rip up another? I mean,
Take it under advisement.
Yeah, what's the real point? Just make a list of everybody who sent a package in?
Yep.
And what they've chosen, whether they're composting or their collection, which piece of.
So depending on how many we get, that may only take 15 minutes. Maybe we just do that on the 4th or whatever that Tuesday is.
Tuesday the 4th is your regular public works.
For now, let's tentatively schedule to open the packets on the 4th during the regular meeting, unless we have so many it's going to be cumbersome. Mac?
This will be the first Public Works meeting of the new budget year. We won't have one in July. So it could be a little longer than a normal because you didn't have anything the month before.
Well, let's just keep it tentative. We'll see what happens.
Chairman, could
Yes, sir.
we, on that point, could we not have a Public Works meeting in July? I mean, there's business to conduct to keep the one in August from being quite so long.
Well, we typically don't have a
You
July.
typically don't, but if there's business to conduct, why not?
Good question. I don't have an answer. No, we won't have. Yeah, we wouldn't have packets to open, but he's talking about regular business on it'd be the new year.
In a new budget year, so there should not be any budget amendments whatsoever. It'd just be a report is all you would be doing. If you did it on the first Tuesday of July, whatever day that is.
Let me make sure I'm clear. When we're opening packets, we're going to say, this is from John Doe Technologies, RIP. They are doing crushed glass and tire shredding. This is XYZ. They are doing food processing, and the little monkey's doing the zirconium diamonds. Is that about the gist of it?
About the gist of it, and then you come back and calendar them for their meeting time.
Okay. Even if we had 40 packets, I think we can do that in 15 minutes, don't you? I mean,
Were there some, Mr. Chairman?
yes.
Were there some minimum requirements on, I know we kind of just try to distill it down. Are there any minimum requirements? So we may, if there's not a minimum requirement, it goes in a disposal pile if they met the minimum.
Yeah, I mean, they had to sign, I'm sure there's some
little thing.
yeah.
Well, that's where we could just take them under advisement. We could go through the whole thing,
Take them under advisement.
after the meeting, but we're showing everything publicly on top of the table. Here it is. We open it. This is the section that they're in. They're only doing X, Y, Z, and this is doing A, B, C, and the different companies and everything. Take them under advisement, and then we go through and check, all three of us, then making sure that they've met all those requirements to go forward.
Good plan. That could expedite the meeting. Good. Thank you.
Right. Okay, so then on the 5th of August, which is the first new meeting we just agreed to, could then we not go through each one, and that, we're not really going to have an interview then, we're just going to go through under the advisement and go through and check all their paperwork, make sure they've signed all the documents, lay them out on a plan, we'll compile them, that this pile is composting, this pile is diamonds, this pile is food, this pile is tires. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I think after that night we meet, the 5th, that day, depending on how many we get, I think myself and Mac can, and I'm hoping that Becky can open her schedule for that day, and we can go through those and make sure they qualify and be ready for the meeting that night, and be able to give you more information, detailed, whether they didn't sign this, they didn't do this, we were looking for this, they didn't fill out this, or these comply. Now it's up to the committee whether this is a contender on what we're looking for, and that might be 3 or 4 pieces to the puzzle of our solving our whole situation. That's why we're opening it up so we could get anybody and everybody in here, and then they more or less weed themselves out, and then the committee will as well, depending on what they can do or not do.
That sounds like a plan.
Take all your tire people and interview them on the same night. That way you're talking about one subject.
Good thought. No, I like that idea. Did everybody hear what Mac said? Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I don't want to muddy the water, but maybe I am a little bit. Trying to wrap my head around one of the questions. You know, of course, the money is paramount. What is it going to cost? I guess the other question is partnerships. You know, how much solid waste do you need to make your proposal work? And if at this point where we have 30 different entities bringing their solid waste to Rutherford County, to Middle Point, so if we come up with a viable solution, does that viable solution mean that if there's partners involved, that the money that is paid for those entities to bring their trash or their solid waste to Rutherford County, does the solution, I guess the solution gets the money and we don't?
Yeah.
That's when
the fun begins.
That's when the fun begins. That's when you get down to negotiating what's best in the best interest for the citizens of Rutherford County. We're going, we want more than that.
Okay.
As a host community, we still have a card to play. And we should be able to negotiate with them,
yes, sir.
You know, compared to other counties.
I just want to make sure that that was something that was out there, that we were not just going to pick a solution and then they, they bring all comers to, to bring whatever.
Control it.
Yes, sir. Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Hey, this is, I wish I could recite the theme from the movie, but this is our house. And nobody's going to come in and push us around.
Strongly concur, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Yes, sir.
Becky, if we had a question right now, can we get that out to the people that are bidding? Is that through an email or?
Right now, we have a list of 13 companies and contacts at those 13 companies. We've said that we'll take questions until July 6th. So I'm glad to send an email to them or have Rachel send an email to them if there's a question you need to ask of all of them. But you may not get, if there are still people sending in their information and showing interest, you may not get those people as part of that process.
Well, one of the things that I feel that would weed out, and if I offend somebody with that word, I apologize. But what do they expect from this county as far as funds, PP3? I think if someone's coming and wants $200 million from us, I mean, we'll be able to make some, make some opinions right there. As far as land and funds, does this committee feel like that's a question that we could ask them right now so that would be available to us when we open those packets?
Yeah, I think that's a question you can ask them. We've seen presentations from different companies, and a few of them have said, well, if you'll give this, we'll give that, or, if this, then that. I think that's a question you ask them when they're here. I think until you know what it is and how much space they need, maybe it's land, or maybe it's access to some,
They may want access to rail, like our site down in Fulcrum would be an excellent location for Fulcrum. They need 20 acres and rail and a gas line. Right? We got 20 acres, rail and a gas line.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, if we ask that question, it gives us more leverage in negotiations.
That's true, but they may not want to give it yet.
Yeah, Craig, here's my thought. This is just Mike Cush's thought. First of all, if you send that question out, you have to send it to everybody so everybody knows then what you're going to divulge. I would rather in the RFP have a discussion with somebody about what they would need from us, because that's when the negotiation hammer then starts to unfold. The hammer's not the right word. That's when the negotiations start to unfold. If we just say up front, we're willing to pitch in $200 million, or we have 80 acres and a mule that we can loan you or lease to you, then what else do we have to negotiate at the end? I would rather keep all that to the very end when somebody's really interested and we're getting down to, man, we're close. What can we do? And that's where you then become a partner instead of a vendor versus an owner, or a county versus a vendor. That's when the partnership starts to develop, and then there's a buy-in. That's just my thought. I don't know that we expose what we're willing to do just yet, because if we're willing to do something like that, we're going to want a lot in return. I don't know what that is yet. None of us know. We won't know until we start talking dollars and cents, or free this, or you're going to build 100 miles of new roads for us to get to the facility. I don't know, but that's just my thought, Craig. I may be way off base, but
Sir, I agree. All I'm trying to do is, if I can remind y'all, we had some people come in, said that they have a technology which is burning, which is something you brought up that, it's, burning, but, oh, by the way, we need $60 million.
Yeah.
And, and then also we look at this technology, go, man, this is what we're looking for. And then they hit us with that. And that's the only reason I said that. I mean, I am good with whatever we do. I just wanted that was an example that was eating me up.
Yeah. Well, but then you're talking about going in with a partnership with this technology, right? Basically. Because you're ponying up $60 million of taxpayer money, so it's a partnership. And my personal opinion is that kind of partnership is not necessarily out of the question, but we're going to have to love it, and it's going to have to make a rate of return a whole lot better than our initial $60 million investment. And we're a long way from even knowing the who, what, when, and where, how that's going to happen yet. So, am I making sense, Mac?
Commissioner Blair's question, combine it with Commissioner Harris's. Here's the opportunity you just came up with. We're going to try to keep disposing at Middle Point for free as long as that place is still open. We're asking for people to come in and do business with us, and they don't know when they're going to start. So if if they're going to need us to have trash partners, then they can go ahead and start with those trash partners and their process while we're still disposing for free. So that's where you get who's our partners and what do you need from us.
And also, Craig, I think you and I discovered this last month. And I know we're ready for answers. We're ready to pick somebody. We're ready for a solution. And I had to dial it back down that an RFI, we have to be more patient and prolong the process, because the RFI is simply going to give us some people to start asking those real questions. So we may have to be patient for the process after the 20-minute interviews. That process may allow us to do an RFP, and at that point, we can demand hard numbers. So I just think we have to be patient a little bit longer. Separate this, not try to commingle again the RFI with the RFP.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
while we're looking at costs, one thing I don't want us to lose sight of is we've got fixed cost regardless of who we decide to go with. And that's something that we need to account for when we do decide on someone, their cost versus, offset whatever money they may generate, depending on the process we look at. But for instance, upkeep on our roads. And maybe that's something we can get our road superintendent to help us with, to give us an idea of what it's costing us right now to upkeep our roads around Middle Point and our convenience centers, not to mention our cleanup crews. Now, we probably got good figures on those, but I'd like to keep it in mind that we do have fixed costs.
Great point, and duly noted. All right. Anything else that comes to mind we want to chat about? I think I've exhausted the meeting notice agenda. You guys have anything else you want to chat about?
Would it, the 13 inquiries, is it worth running through the list, or something you just need to email? Is that, I don't want to bog us down, but can we have the list of the 13 inquiries? Is that something we need to see?
Are you saying you want to know who the 13 inquiries
who they are? If there's just a sentence for each one, I do not want to start digging into questions, but I'm just curious what industries, what technology.
I don't mind. Do you just want me to share the company name? Was that? Okay.
Go ahead.
And what I'll say is there are several that are recycling, a couple of engineering firms, composting, Waste Away is on here. I'll go down the list. It's in alphabetical order. Dynamic Life Cycle Innovations, Geo Services, Piedmont Resources, Pratt Recycling, R&B Debris, Republic Services, Rockwood Sustainable Solutions, Southeastern Compost, The Compost Company, Waste Away, Waste Alliance, and Waste Management. So you've got a pretty good mix there.
And Becky, on top of that, basically they were just sending to keep me involved.
Yeah.
Really no questions yet. It was about anything. It was just, we're in, so to speak. This is the contact, this is our email address. Keep me involved. So most of them was pretty simple. Just quick emails saying, we're in, which...
Sounds like we got two, Republic and Waste Away, so two big players inquired.
Waste Management,
excuse me. Two big ones and then some small ones. So that's interesting too. That's pretty big scope.
When's our next meeting? Public Works or? Okay. I don't think I do. So August 4th is our next solid waste meeting.
The next solid waste.
It's the 5th. Public Works is the 4th. Okay, all right. August 4th is our next Public Works meeting. August 5th is our next Solid Waste Subcommittee meeting, which is when we're going to lay out the packets. All right. Does anybody have anything else they want to chat about? Mayor?
Mr. Chairman, do you want to let Mac brief us where we are with Triad?
Thank you. Thank you.
On our core drilling?
Yes.
I don't think we could wait because that's what we, the motion was to go ahead and have the 13 or how many core samples done so we can provide this information to all those people who want to turn in an RFP.
Yep. Thank you for the reminder. Mac, you want to?
We have completed the core drilling. What should be on your iPads, I think it's on there, isn't it?
It is.
What
SharePoint.
is what we sent to the state to let them know the results of what we did. And it's pretty simple. You know, we drilled this many holes, and then toward the back of it tells how deep they are, how far it was before they hit trash, how deep the trash was, how deep it was till they got to the bottom, and all those things. Our GIS group through OIT has a drone, and they can fly over our landfill and basically do a site survey, elevation survey. So they went out there and they did that on Monday, and their equipment, they had an equipment failure, so they could not complete it. So they had to get that software kit fixed, and then their pilot got sick, and then they had a licensing issue, and then our guy at Triad had a death in the family. So probably going to be next week before we get all this stuff put together. But what Triad's going to try to do for us is a cross-section of our landfill that shows where the trash is, how deep each of the layers are, where the bottom is, how deep from the top of the surface to the trash, to the bottom of the trash, from the bottom of the trash down to bedrock. So it will give us a lot better idea, or anybody else that's looking at our landfill, of what's actually there. And if you'll look at those pages toward the back of it, there's some pretty deep soils in our landfill. If you'll, this first table, which would be page 4 maybe.
And Mac, would those soils be cover or at the base?
Both.
Okay.
If you look at thickness of the cover for where they drilled the 4 inside of the trash, the cover dirt is 9.9 feet, 9 feet, 2 feet, 12 feet, and 7.5 feet before you get to trash. And then the ironic thing is the one that's 7.5 feet till you get to trash, and the trash is only 2 feet, 2.5 feet thick. You know, so there's a lot of dirt in our landfill. So this should help any of those that's looking to determine what they may or may not want to do with that.
And I think you mentioned to me earlier that the full report is not complete yet, but will be shortly, right?
Jeff Postel's father passed away unexpectedly, so he has the information. So the end of this week, early next week, he should be back. All this is happening over in East Tennessee.
Okay. And the report that anybody would need as a supplement to the RFI would be the one that we need in a week, right? So you'll make sure you'll send everybody the completed report, specifically Steve, so he'll have that on hand in case anybody requests it. And I'd go ahead and send a copy to Becky too, but make sure all the committee has a copy of that report. All right. Yes.
Chairman, so the completed report will actually tell us where they drilled, what's actually there as well, correct?
There's not, it tells you where the trash is. It doesn't tell you what was actually, there's a little bit in the trash. If you read the reports there on the back, like one of them says they got into some wire, and the amount of wire that they got into was probably tires, more than likely. And I think I mentioned to y'all in the past that there was one spot on our landfill that I'd always been told that there's where tires buried, and it's off the footprint. They drilled a hole right through the middle of it, and all they hit was some rock pretty quickly. I always wondered why they did not borrow the soil from there, because it's pretty shallow to rock. There's not much soil there to borrow, but there's no tires there.
Didn't see any lime green ooze or anything like that that's radioactive.
It was kind of disappointing. I went out there to watch a little while, and they would core drill down, and they'd pull out, they'd run a piece of plastic sleeve down there to pull it out, and they'd have a sleeve, 10 or 12 feet long, and it was mostly dirt with a little bit of trash on each end, and then you'd get into dirt again. And we had a 30-yard open top up there for them to put all the stuff that came out, because it had to be buried somewhere else. We couldn't put it back in our landfill. When we picked that open top up, we wound up taking it to one of the convenience centers and setting off to let them put stuff in it. It didn't even have a half a pickup truck load of stuff in it.
Yeah, so sounds like a lot of good dirt in there. All right. Anything else? I want to thank everybody for their time and effort, and we will see you soon.
Happy 4th.
Meeting dismissed.
Happy 4th.
Yeah, oh, that's right. Happy July 4th. Happy Independence Day. Thank you, Robert P.